Well, at Cambridge Air Solutions, we have a damper drive arm bracket that is part of our damper linkage. And due to unnormal wear or unnormal stress, we've been finding that this PEM stud has been breaking off. And when this PEM stud breaks off, you need to replace the whole linkage piece. And to replace the whole linkage piece, it's actually attached to our damper blade system in the unit. And in order to get to this out and change it, you have to take the downturn off, get to the damper blades, get to the linkage, and it becomes quite a job. And what we did is we actually engineered a new design that is going to allow us to just have a damper drive pin, and then the linkage itself is going to be actually installed and removed without having to take the downturn off. So today we're going to show you on a basic roof installation how we would, if you need to replace this, take the downturn off, take the linkage off, replace the new linkage with the new design linkage, so where going forward, anything going on, you would no longer, we have a new engineered design bracket that is actually going to be a piece of linkage that goes in, and then the bracket itself is removable and installed just from the side here to where you don't have to take the whole unit apart. So much greater improvement in our process. Going forward, new product is going to have this to where we don't have it, but with this pin breaking, we're making it much easier to install the bracket and troubleshoot our heater. As you're doing these repairs, Cambridge Air Solutions recommends that only qualified technicians work on this piece of equipment, and always keep safety as your highest priority when working on this. So make sure power is off, make sure nobody else is around. You can lock the piece of equipment out by doing this. We're doing it actually in an environment on our shop floor, but just always wanted to remind you, safety first always, please. So prior to doing any work, always make sure that the unit power is turned off. So the first thing you want to do is take a screwdriver, open the doors. The doors are removable, so you can take those and set those to the side. You don't have to take the doors off, but it will make it easier for you to gain access to every point in there. With your 5/16 nut driver, we have screws that go along, and as you take this off, this panel will be removable. The panel will pop out from the bottom and then slide down. Now you can see you have access to your damper linkage all in there. So on this unit here, the drive bracket actually is intact, but this is where you would see the PEM stud that's broke off, and this is where usually the bracket would come off and be broken. So right at that point right there.
Okay, so the next step is to remove the bolts with a 1/2-inch deep well socket. There's 5 of them on the S1200, there's 2 on the S400, and 5 on the 2200. So we need to remove all 5 of the bolts before we can go any further to take the downturn off.
So now that we got the bolts or the nuts removed, what we need to do is we need to lift the unit up enough, because this flashing has a inch flange on it, and we can't get the downturn off unless we're up above that. So what we need to do is on the roof bottom, we need to stack up some 2x4s. We actually took the car jack out of our car, our rental car. We're going to put that on here, assemble it to where it's under here, and we're actually going to pick up the heater just enough to where we can get this off the lip of that downturn. So now that we raised it up some, I'm going to center the car jack. Take 2 pieces of 2 4x4s to center it there. As you start to turn it and raise it, you will start to notice that the gap here grows stronger. And what you're looking is for about a 1/2 inch to an inch. And when you get to that point, so what we want to do is when you raise it up enough, you want to visually check to make sure that your downturn is up above that flange. So what we want to do next, now that we have it raised up enough, what we want to do is we want to take the downturn off. This is recommended as a 2-person job. There is some weight to it, so get a helper. And what you want to do is you want to pull out
on the downturn and then lift up. There is a flange here, and then we already pre-cut the caulk that was on there, so you're going to have a seal and a caulk that you're going to want to cut off as well. Now that the unit's setting up, we got the downturn off. You notice we still have a gap here, and I don't like it sitting on the jack as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise it, lower it, actually to where it actually sets back down on the curb to give it a little bit more rigidity. So now that we have the downturn off, we lost a little bit of our stable, the rigidity of it setting on there with the downturn. Going forward with this, two things, be careful. If you have any pieces of wood, lay it on this so nothing drops in the building. But remember, be careful, be safe as you're moving these parts around, because it is safe in these conditions, but it could possibly, with a heavy hit, move or slide on you. So in a broken system, you won't see this on here, but in a bent system or a wore down system, what you need to do is remove the linkage here. So this pin, or this key ring, as you twist it, it comes off. There is one washer, and then the damper arm comes off. Once the damper arm comes off, it can lay low like that, and then you can see how the linkage can then move on it. So what we need to do is remove this this bracket from the linkage itself. There is a cotter pin that's holding this bar on, and what we need to do is remove that cotter pin and washer, so then we can remove the bar from the linkage piece.
Yeah.
So this is again the linkage that we're working with. You can see how it will stick through the duct side, and the only way to get this piece out is to take that nut and bolt loose so you can slide it out. So that's why we have to take this downturn off to get to that part. You good for me to do the work? Okay. So then with your nut driver and wrench, what you want to do is take the nut and bolt off of this linkage here. And then just lay the damper down like that. Now that you got the damper blade removed from the linkage, just maneuver the linkage and pull the pin out, and then set it to the side or discard it. Okay, so what we want to do next is get a mallet and a piece of wood, and what we need to do is we need to hammer out this bushing, because now we have a much smaller bushing that goes into that piece there. So put your piece of wood flat onto the bushing, give it a couple hits. And then pop the bushing out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the other bushing and you're going to pop it back in. The best way to do that is from this side, is line up the hole. So the next thing we want to do is put the new Pex Pin into the damper linkage, into the damper blade. You have a longer end and a shorter end from where the hole is. Take the longer end, and that's going to go through the wall there. So what we're going to do is stick that through there. We're going to line up that hole in the damper blade along with the linkage, and then we are going to reattach the nut and bolt that we took off with the original piece.
So now that we have the rod in place, we now have the rod sticking through, but we don't have the linkage tied to it. And this is where our new linkage is going to be installed, to where we can now take this on and off without needing the need to get to the damper blades. Now that we have the linkage on there, what we want to do is we want to lift the unit back up, put the downturn on, because for safety purposes, we don't want anything dropping through the hole there. So now that we're done with the linkage, we're going to go ahead and do that part here. So I'm just going to start to jack this back up. So when you put the downturn on, you want to get the upper lip first, let it slide down, and then the PEM studs will fall into the existing holes. So now that they have it on there, go ahead and tighten down your bolts that you took off, the 5 of them. Now that we got all the bolts tight, what we want to do is just drop the downturn back on it. As you're dropping the downturn on, just visually make sure you're hitting on the lip of that counter flashing. When you are done with the downturn and you're sitting on there, don't forget to run a bead of caulk around the seam here when finished.
So with the new linkage, this is what it looks like. You got your nut and your bolt on the linkage piece there. You have 2 PEM studs. One is going to be for the bar and one is going to be for the damper linkage. So what we want to do is put the bar piece on, put our washer on, and then we want to put our cotter pin on. Alright, once you get your cotter pin on, what you're going to do is slide this up, and then it goes right onto the piece there. You can't really put it on backwards because you're going to see how that is. So there's really only one way for it to go on. And then once you get this piece on, we're going to take our socket, because it captures it down below there. So now we got that on there.